One afternoon in May 2015, I was staring outside my bedroom window looking exactly at this view because I was home from work sick. I was nearing the end of a 2-year teaching contract that I did not renew. For 2 years, I lived in a small city called Changzhou in mainland China, teaching at an international school that no longer exists. This is the story of how I quit a full-time teaching job after 4 years and became a math tutor. But first, I need to preface this story with 2 points. The first is that this video is actually very difficult to make. It is not my intention to talk bad about any of the teachers or school principals that I worked with. At every school, there were teachers and administrators that I highly respected. I don't want them to watch this video and think that I am not grateful for the opportunities to work with them. I also don't want to give the impression that everything about teaching is bad, because that is completely untrue. My first year of teaching goes down in my memory books as one of the best years of my young adult life. I was involved in a musical. One of the grads took a picture of me pushing the overhead carts, and then he photoshopped it to make me look like a waitress. He put this on an invitation to a teacher appreciation lunch. When I saw this picture, I laughed for about 10 minutes. Speaking of laughter, that was basically the soundtrack of my teacher office. The teachers in the office down the hall could hear us. I had a lot of fun memories working with these people. Another year, the middle school went on a multi-day field trip to the Three Gorges Dam in Hubei province in China. Who gets to do that as part of their job? Even at the school that I worked at before leaving, I had good relationships with the parents and students at the school. When it was announced which teachers were leaving that year, one of the parents brought her son to me and said, "Tell Miss Tong what you told me." And with a pout, he said, "You were my favorite teacher." I've been in contact with his classmate recently, and his classmate is telling me that 7 years later, he's still saying the same thing. Secondly, I only taught for 4 years, which is not a very long time. I think I understand the flavor of teaching, but there's a lot of nuance and depth that I don't know about. I'm not going to talk about the entire profession as a whole, because I don't think I'm in a place to do that. I'm just talking about my own experience and how that led me to exit the profession. This is also a story that I'm telling because a lot of people do ask me. People who have seen me teach in schools frame it like, "I think you could benefit a lot more students if you taught in a school." And other people ask me, because I suppose it's very strange to them, why somebody would choose to become a self-employed tutor over being a unionized employee. So if you do enjoy this video, please like it, share it with anybody that may find it helpful, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you have a story about quitting teaching, leave your story or a link to your story in the comments down below. All that out of the way, it's story time. So you know when you're sick and you're stuck at home and you have nothing to do, you just start thinking. So I was thinking about all the teaching applications that I would have to do when I got back home. Now, it had always been my intention to just stay in China for 2 years, get some experience, and then go back home. I had not actually planned on leaving the profession. But in the still small silence of my bedroom, I was just struck with this unwavering finality that I did not want to continue teaching for another year. So what brought that on? Well, for a few months now, I had been dreading going back to work every Sunday night. By Sunday night, we were supposed to have filled out our weekly plan on an Excel sheet, and it had to include things like differentiation and plans for assessments. I don't know if anybody ever looked at those. Every day, we were required to show up at 7:30 and sign in at the front desk. So there was a sign-in sheet, and teachers had to fill it out row by row with our name and the exact minute that we arrived. Staff do it one after another, so it's not like you can put down that you arrived at 7:07 a.m. if the person above your entry put down 7:30. Then it was time to prepare for class by making photocopies, cleaning up the classroom, and writing down the day's plan on the board. While I was doing all these things, I just felt this pit in my stomach. I felt very trapped. Then the bell would ring, the students would come in, and then I would really have to put on this teacher face. I felt trapped on one side by the micromanaging of arrival times and this box-ticking exercise of the weekly plan, but it was also a response to the increased workload by way of increased student counts. So for half of the second year, there were 5 students in the middle school. Yes, that means that I only had to mark 5 tests opposed to 25. So in that sense, it's less work. But these 5 students knew the social dynamic and they knew the expectations. When you add 3 kids more than halfway through the year, one of which was special needs, you can say goodbye to classroom routine, you can say goodbye to the English speaking policy, and the momentum of learning is really disrupted. The saddest thing is, I believe that if I was not able to handle all these changes, then I must not be a good teacher. I think one of the hardest things about teaching is that we are in a role of leadership and we are there to support students' mental, social, and emotional health. But we ourselves may not be working under conditions where we can support our mental and social health. Now, it's perfectly reasonable to ask, okay, so this is probably an isolated incident with this school. What about other schools? No, I don't think that the majority of schools operate this way and to this degree, but I have taught at enough schools to know it's been pretty hard for me to teach the same class more than once. In 4 years, I have taught all kinds of courses such as Chemistry 11, Chemistry 12, Math 10, various ESL classes, ICT, skills, academic preparation, Canadian history, just a smorgasbord of different classes. Sure, department heads can hand me a binder and say these are all the resources that you need to teach these classes, but you still have to be able to wrap the whole course around in your head so that you can understand the progression of the topics and how the different themes tie in with each other. You can really only do this if you've done the course at least 2 or 3 times. Also, it's really important to be able to connect the resources with the students that you have in your class. It's no use to have a whole bunch of worksheets and activities if they don't fit your students. Teaching 10 different courses one time over involves so much wasted labor compared to, say, teaching 2 courses 5 times each. This is not the concern of whoever is creating the teaching load. Tutoring is completely different. For example, I have invested a lot of time into learning courses like Precalculus and Calculus, but these are really high demand subjects and I have used my knowledge over and over again. So that kind of upfront work was totally worth it. When I first started tutoring, I thought it was going to be temporary. It was quite a change going from a group of students to one-on-one. I remember watching one particular kid do a bunch of math questions slowly, but wrong. If that sounds really boring to you, that's because it is. So what I decided to do with all this silence and all this time was to actually figure out how to teach math. Now, on paper it said that I had taught math for 3 years, but it's a little bit different in the classroom. When you have a larger group of students, it is very difficult to have enough time to work with one student for long enough to understand exactly what they don't understand and why they don't understand it. But with tutoring, since there were no other distractions, I could really focus on getting the students' results. That was when I discovered that tutoring math is kind of like solving a puzzle, and it's kind of fun. A couple months later, the mom happily told me that her kid got an A on the most recent math test. The kid wasn't really the type of person to boast, but mom was proud. And I thought this is what work should feel like. Someone in the world is in a slightly better position because of something that I did for them. Fast forward 7 years later, so clearly I'm more experienced now, probably wiser. Would I ever go back into teaching? Well, if you look at Google My Business, you'll see that I actually did part-time math only at a very small school, mostly during the COVID year. And that is why I made it very clear that when I talk about experiences that led up to me quitting, it was in 2015. It had nothing to do with this school. I'm not continuing to teach at any school next year though, because the choices really are full-time teaching, which I do not want, or part-time teaching, part-time tutor, which is kind of difficult because it means that I am kind of on the job from morning till night, and I don't want that. Or it is just 100% tutoring. That is what I'm deciding to do. I got into education because I love teaching and I love working with young people. Watching students progress and grow is one of the real joys of teaching. If you're interested in my services, my name is Clara Tong. I tutor math online to students in grade 8 through Calculus 2. I help students gain confidence, improve grades, and achieve goals. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.